AVC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. It's time for a What's Spinning video. Just some of the stuff that I've been spinning over the past week or two. Just want to kind of share it before I put it away this evening. And so, yeah, let's just kind of jump right into it. We'll start off here with Talking Heads, 77, which was their release from 1977. Probably still my favorite Talking Heads album. Of course, it has that, my favorite song by them, which is Psycho Killer. Absolutely love that track. And yeah, always great to go back and revisit this. Especially an album that came out, like I said, kind of in the, I guess, just past the mid 70s, like 77. But it's really one of those that you kind of listen to and you realize like they were really one of those bands that was setting the mark for what was about to come in the 80s. I mean, they were definitely kind of a bit ahead of their time, and that album kind of showed it. Next here, you have Scorpion Child, another great album. This one came out in 2013. For those that haven't heard it, if you are a Greta Van Fleet fan, which obviously me also saying a Zeppelin fan, this is something that's just right up that exact same ballpark without question. Especially the whole Greta Van Fleet thing. I mean, this band sounds very, 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 very similar. Like I said, this came out in 2013, but really, really good album. Highly recommend that if you're into those bands. Of course, Tesla, the Great Radio Controversy. I mean, what a classic that is right there, with awesome stuff like Love Song and so many other great things on this album. So that was a really, really great spin. I actually spun that one this morning. Average White Band, Cut the Cake. Another just kind of classic. I wouldn't call it funk, but a little bit of everything. Little rock, little southern rock feel, funk, R&B. I mean, they just kind of mixed it all in here, which is probably where their name Average White Band kind of came from in the first place. But this does have one of the classic songs to me, which is Schoolboy Crush. And I say that because the two samples that were taken directly from that song, like note for note, Microphone Fiend by Eric B. and Rakim, they sampled that song note for note, and also Life Is Too Short by Too Short, he sampled note for note the groove out of that song as well. And both of those grooves are playing on top of each other in that song. So anyone who's really into old school hip hop and stuff like that, Eric B. and Rakim and, Microphone Fiend and Life Is Too Short are just like two of the major jams of old school hip hop. And both those songs were taken from Schoolboy Crush off of this album. So that automatically gives this album props, just with that association alone. So really, really cool stuff there. And speaking of old school hip hop, the DOC, No One Can Do It Better. I mean, this album came out in '89, and still to this day when I put it on, it's like hearing it for the first time, because this is just one of, song for song, one of the most classic hip hop albums of all time in my opinion. And he was kind of in there with Eazy-E and NWA. He was kind of part of that whole clique. And yeah, sad thing is, right after this album came out, and he was really starting to blow up off of this album, and he got into a car accident. I believe that's what happened, and crushed his vocal cords, his larynx or something, and so he couldn't, he could barely talk, very, very, and we just automatically, even though voice wise or putting out more music wise, I mean, we lost one of the greats right there. Because if he just would have had a chance to put out one or two more albums, good gracious. But yeah, I say he tore it up on this. It's funky enough, the formula, I mean, lend me an ear, just on and on and on. This is just one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time right there. So that's kind of definitely a sad story, and I hope he's doing all right. But next here we have Pure Hell. I spoke about this one a little while ago, but just kind of a nice punk piece from 78. Yeah, 1978. Cover kind of tells you all you need to know right there. It's pretty cool. So that was a good spin. Kind of diving back into some oldies but goodies I hadn't listened to in a while, which is the Romantics, and this is In Heat. Of course, this is the album that had Talking in Your Sleep on it, which was a gigantic hit for them back in the 80s. And yeah, just kind of a nice one to revisit there. And then got into a few soundtracks too. Youngblood. Those of you that are big 80s fans, you guys definitely remember this movie from back in the 80s. Really cool soundtrack. There's some big names on here like Starship, Mr. Autograph, Nick Gilder, and stuff like that, but none of their gigantic hits. There's really kind of no very popular mainstream hits off of this album. But the song Stand in the Fire by Mickey Thomas, which is kind of the theme song in the movie, love that track. Just love it to death. And another one of those 80s treasures that I just never get tired of listening to, right along with this baby right here, which is Teen Wolf. I mean, again, it's like as soon as I start talking about this 80s stuff, like the smile just comes. I cannot help it. But just another soundtrack I never get tired of listening to. Love everything on here, but specifically songs like Shooting for the Moon by Amy Holland, Win in the End by Mark Safan, which is really kind of the song that defines the whole movie Teen Wolf to me. Way to Go, Good News, Big Bad Wolf, just love it. Absolutely love it. The next one here is Jermaine Stewart, and this is Say It Again. Another one of those, he was kind of the, I guess, somewhat R&B, but more kind of the pop dance scene. Most people probably remember him from the big hit he had, We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off. You guys remember that song? But I love the track Say It Again, which is just, the title track on here is absolutely awesome. He also did a lot of the background singing on a lot of Culture Club stuff too. So he was definitely one of the, kind of lower key legends back during that phase and everything. And I think sadly he passed away from AIDS, I believe. But yeah, Jermaine is just my guy. I love him to death. Nina, had to throw on little 99 Luft Balloons the other day, and always fun to revisit this album. Another one of those classic 80s albums that makes you think about that time period. Little Uncle Ted, Spun Him, Little Stranglehold, all that great stuff. Just sometimes you just need to kind of sit back and crank up the volume, let Ted do his thing. So always great to revisit Uncle Ted. And song for song, one of the greatest rock albums of all time, in my opinion, which is Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy. This is one of those albums that just no matter how old it gets, how many times I've listened to it, it just never loses its punch to me. So many great things on here. And of course, just Phil's amazing vocal delivery on this thing. Just absolutely fantastic. So always giving that one a spin. Sinead O'Connor, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. Another classic that I had not spun in a long time. And of course, off of this, you had the major hit, which is Nothing Compares to You, which was the cover of Prince's song that she did. And unlike a lot of people that covered songs by Prince, because Prince wrote a lot of stuff for that, the Time coverage, Sheila E., the Bangles, on and on and on. But I really feel like Sinead O'Connor was the only one that took Prince's song and actually took it to another level that Prince didn't. And quite frankly, probably that Prince couldn't have. And I don't think you can say that about any other artist with anything they ever covered by Prince. But that song was meant for her, and she killed it. So legendary in that regard. But really kind of going back and listening to this entire album, which I hadn't done in a while, it was really kind of cool because you really, really felt that stuff that was going to come in the 90s and 2000s with like the Mazzy Star and all that kind of stuff. Not the same sound, but the feel of what that music was going to bring. She was already doing it on this album. Like this really was kind of a roadmap, or one of the albums that laid the roadmap for what a lot of female artists were going to be doing in the 90s and 2000s. And so it was kind of cool. It was almost like going back and hearing it for the first time. It's been so long since I've spun it from start to finish. It was a really, really great revisit there. So I was happy to pull that one out and give it a spin. Queensryche, Rage for Order, another classic there. This is their release from 1986. Queensryche, more great stuff. Of course, this has the song Walk in the Shadows, which is one of my top 3 favorite songs by them. Love that to death. And another great spin of one I hadn't touched my turntable in a while. Little Joan Jett, Glorious Results of a Misspent Youth. Not my favorite album by her when you start looking at like her first 4 or 5 albums or so, but still definitely a great one. So I had to go revisit that. Little Godsmack, Lighting Up the Sky. You know, my favorite band right there. Actually going to see them in a couple days, so that's going to be awesome. But yeah, had to give their newest album a spin there, so that was a good one. Another classic here, which is Funkadelic, Maggot Brain. Another classic. I'm sure all you guys are very familiar with this album. I would love to someday get an OG copy of this. This is a 2014 European reissue, kind of a yellowish, somewhat marble kind of vinyl. But yeah, one day I'd definitely love to get a very nice OG copy of that. But just another classic album there. Just from the moment you put that one on, it's just amazing stuff. UB40, Labor of Love 2, an album I spun a lot in high school. I had a friend named Gary that introduced me to this album, and just like for that summer, I just played it non-stop. But a very, very great album. Definitely my favorite album by UB40. Everything on here from, you know, Here I Am to Groovin', Kingston Town. Just, you know, a lot of great stuff on here. So my favorite album by UB40 right there, Labor of Love 2. And I was at the shop Saturday and just kind of revisited Little Maiden. So I pulled out Killers, gave that a spin. I mean, again, another fantastic one. You guys know this album very well. Always great to go back to that early Maiden. Kind of, you know, when Paul was doing his thing. The Melvins, another good spin there. Again, just another one I hadn't put on the turntable in a while, so I had to give that a revisit. Very, very cool stuff. And the last three here, played this one a couple times actually, which is Lita by Lita Ford. You know, Kiss Me Deadly, all the great, awesome stuff that Lita was doing back in the 80s. You know, again, always a fun spin with that. A Little Birds, Turn, Turn, Turn. I don't know what possessed me one night. I just decided just to go pull out some old 60s, kind of go in my 60s section and just start pulling out a lot of random things. And this is the one I listened to from start to finish. So, you know, again, classic. You guys know the Byrds. Love that album. And last but not least, the Police, Every Breath You Take. And this is the singles. And so this is, you know, Roxanne, Can't Stand Losing You, Message in a Bottle, Don't Stand So Close, like on and on and on and on and on. Just a really nice compilation. I know that that Abbey Road's Half Speed Remaster, Greatest Hits, just came out not too long ago. It's basically the exact same track list as this, with a few extra songs thrown in on the new Abbey Road's remaster. So there's a couple songs that aren't on this, which is why it's a single disc, and the Abbey Road is a double disc. But anyway, just another great one to listen to, and just kind of go back to one of the great groups there. So anyway, there you go, VC. Those are some of the things that I've been spinning over the past week or two. As always, let me know what you guys think, and we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys.